Well, because I knew that I would have too many emotions today. I wrote everything down just to be able to follow my mind. First, welcome all again, good friends, new ones. A year ago, Jackie has this exhibit here, this retrospective exhibition that probably some of you saw. And we came a little bit late for the opening, but we did see the show, and Jackie was there, and we enjoyed so much. But what touched me most about the show was the warm, gentle way the work reflected Jackie's life. Having organized a similar, retrospective for ourselves, our work with Yael recently, I know how much every piece has to say to us, the makers. So many memories, emotions, feelings attached to every work. Yet, even if these are objects created from scratch, born out of the combined labor of hand, mind, and heart, the observer only sees the tip of the iceberg. A weave may be full of meaning, but possesses the silence of objects. So that is where this came to be. What if we would, this thought came to me during an early morning fire. I make them wherever I can, really. It's a ritual, and it's where probably I, have these opportunities to just watch at the fire, which is a form of meditation, if you want. So it comes out like, what if Jackie would have a talk in retrospective, not of objects, but of colleagues, some of her weaver friends with whom she has shared her remarkable life. We would create then an imaginary gallery, also known as a campfire, and carefully place a vessel to be filled with memories and experiences by the circle of her friends. Pierre. But before I could tell Jackie about this, I had to know if the individuals I had in mind, the fabulous pioneers of this almost forgotten art, would be able to attend. So I sent my emails. Mary said, all five, I just sent it to 5 people. All 5 responded immediately. All 5 ready to dedicate this weekend to Jackie, dropping everything else, paying their way from far corners of the country to be here, sharing with us their wisdom and art. To complete the program and trying to cover as many aspects we could of Jackie's experiences, 5 more weavers shares their memories and knowledge. So I'm deeply moved, of course, by this joyful celebration. Thank you, Jackie, for being such an inspiring force. It's so good. And thank you, Mary Lane, for being there at each step, which was super important. And then thank you, Mary Sikafus, Susan, Pam, Sarah, thanks you, Bora, Sally, Victoria, and Jerry, Catherine, Tricia. Thank you, absent Janet Moon, who have something to say, and Betty Hilton Nash, that have something to say, for responding so beautifully to the invitation. Did I forget anyone on our group? Pam, did I mention you? Yeah, I did. Okay. So, because I wrote it down, but I can barely read it. There is not enough light here. So, anyway, thank you all for being here.
Okay. So I'm going to try to get in the right place here for this. Saturday morning. My role is the MC today. And I'm going to introduce our first speaker, which is Mary Lane, who you've already met. Mary Lane is an artist and art historian. She began weaving tapestry in 1976, and in 1982 became a founding member of the Sheer Tapestry Studio in New York City. Her tapestries have been exhibited internationally and have been collected by both private and corporate art collections. Her teaching experience includes Parsons School of Design, the University of Maine, and the Evergreen State College. Lane's writing on contemporary textiles has been published widely. She is retired from her position as Executive Director of the American Tapestry Alliance. Let's give it up for Mary Lane.
Thank you, Mary. Let's see. All right, I need to switch out PowerPoints. Oh, when Jean-Pierre invited me to be part of this event, he asked me if I would present a survey of contemporary tapestry in the United States in 30 minutes. And I thought, well, at least it wasn't a survey of tapestry around the world. So fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. If you read the juror's essay in a catalog for a contemporary tapestry exhibition, it is almost inevitable that you will run across a comment about the diversity of the field. Perhaps this is not that unusual or particular to tapestry, as postmodernism has, for the most part, done away with isms and opened up the recognized world of creative endeavors to a broader scope of techniques and materials and a more interdisciplinary approach. As I was preparing this talk, I received the catalog for the current iteration of American Tapestry Alliance's noted exhibition, American Tapestry Biennial 14. Rena Wood, in her juror's statement, said, and I quote, "The work explores a wide range of themes and subjects, from two-dimensional to sculptural works, large-scale abstract works to delicate, intimate pieces. The exhibition offers a diverse array of tapestries that reflect the incredible breadth and depth of tapestry weaving today," end quote. What does this often repeated comment on the diverse state of contemporary tapestry mean? How does this breadth and depth manifest itself in the work that each one of us creates? That is the question that will hover over my presentation of contemporary tapestry in the United States. But first, I want to highlight a few of the many events that have marked the history of tapestry weaving in the United States, starting in the latter half of the 20th century. These are events that have shaped most of our trajectories in the field, either directly or indirectly. Of course, this is not an inclusive list. In this context, brevity is necessary. Many of us found inspiration in the work of weavers such as Sheila Hicks and Lenore Tawney, key players in the development of the fiber art movement, especially as it was championed by Mildred Constantine and Jack Leonard Larson in their two books, Beyond Craft, The Art Fabric, and The Art Fabric Mainstream. In 1971, Jean-Pierre Larochette and Yael Larry arrived in the United States. They met Marjorie Livingston, chair of the textile program at San Francisco State University, who later arranged for Jean-Pierre to head up a weaving demonstration in conjunction with the landmark exhibition, 5 Centuries of Tapestry. Mark Adams supplied a cartoon for the demonstration, California Poppies. That project led to the formation of the San Francisco Tapestry Workshop in 1977. The workshop not only continued to weave the designs of Mark Adams, but more germane to the efflorescence of tapestry in the last quarter of the 20th century, it taught hundreds of students, many of whom went on to teach others, some of whom are with us today. In 1982, Jim Brown and Hal Painter founded the American Tapestry Alliance, arguably the biggest voice for the field internationally. In 1982, Ruth Scheuer opened the Scheuer Tapestry Studio in New York City. Again, in addition to the woven output of the studio, many students were trained through the various educational programs offered. In 1989, Archie Brennan came to New York for a show at the Scheuer Tapestry Studio, then Center for Tapestry Arts. By 1989, he had relocated to the city with Susan Maffei, and through the numerous workshops they offered over the years, Archie convinced us all that small format tapestry had great potential and that the material and technical givens of the medium should influence the design and execution of the tapestry. Sorry, there's kind of a time lag with the, there we go.
Oh, you missed Jackie.
Oh. Sorry. There we go. The buttons are not doing what I want them to do. In 1993, Pacific Textile Arts was founded. Jackie Wollenberg, our honored guest for the weekend, and a primary reason we are gathered here today, has been instrumental throughout Pacific Textile Arts history and is the reason that tapestry weaving has played such an important role here. So now, after that somewhat abbreviated look at contemporary tapestry events in the latter part of the 20th century, let's get back to my charge of illustrating the breadth and depth of contemporary tapestry. I will do this through the lens of a few organizing categories: nature, imaginary spaces, work addressing social, political, and environmental issues, the human figure, abstraction, and breaking the flat plane. Each category will be illustrated by tapestries created through the last 50 years or so. I will speak briefly about each tapestry. Nature is a muse for many artists. Details may be cropped such that the subject is not obvious, as in Liliana Crespi's Prickly Pear, in which the close-up view and the expressive colors suggest nature's complexity and fecundity. Rohan Shusheim Anderson's Crimson Prelude was inspired by a butterfly, which she celebrates through rich colors and textures. The butterfly is escaping the boundary of the tapestry, its organic shape defying the limits of the rectangle. Cecilia Blomberg's Mates creates a quiet and contemplative mood through the patterns on water, which undulate with the tides and currents as they gently rock the boat. Other artists take a more abstract approach to the depiction of the natural world, such as Julia Rapino in her tapestry Rough Water, in which a cropped view of the river, rendered with both smooth and turbulent patterning, evokes through suggestion. Mary Zygafus depicts the sandhill crane migration in Crane Count, week number 7, Platte River. Her meticulous ikat tapestry captures the flow of the river and the movements of the thousands of birds who have stopped on the Platte River as they refuel to journey northward. Joan Griffin's abstracted and colorful Forest Edge captures fleeting impressions found more in the artist's memory than in any photographic documentation. In Sugar Stream, Contra Contrails, Mudfields, Pam Patry depicts the view out her truck window during a road trip through Western states. The textures of the fields are captured through her use of a range of weft materials. Monique Lehman's shaped Birds suggests movement and the play of light across a bird lifting off in flight. A photorealistic style of depicting nature is evident in urban Jupena's Mount Abu, where a dark forest offers a framed glimpse through foliage to a distant, light-filled sky. Kathy Sporing celebrates the seasonal changes as she tilts the perspective on autumn aspen leaves. The contrast of black and white in the trees and the orange and green complements create a sharp image that calls up the brisk, clear air of autumn. Little Deschutes is one of a series of tapestries in which Margot MacDonald documents the rivers in Washington state. The record of her journeys is marked by the latitude and longitude woven into each piece. Depictions of nature using more formal compositional arrangements and foregrounding two-dimensional design principles, such as negative space, can be seen in Tommy Scanlon's 5 Leaves for Miss Lillian. This approach memorializes the leaves as a reminder of her time in an artist's residency, and Lillian Smith, the founder of the residency. Julia Mitchell's simplified rendering of slender grasses and furrowed fields and the strong recessional space marked by the receding furrows lend the image a formal, stylized elegance. Jean-Pierre Larochette's skillful weaving in The Points in Between celebrates the sinuous grasses and weeds that a bird has so deftly fashioned into a cup-shaped nest, another skillful weaver. The title of Kara Stanley's Crazy 8 is reflected in her stylized and colorful approach. The sinuous, undulating arms of the octopus and the fanciful colors enliven this underwater scene. Finally, interpreting the landscape in a way that makes specific woven techniques evident can be seen in Terry Olson's Mount Douglas, where the contrasts in color and the use of eccentric weft creates stylized shrubs, evergreen trees, and clouds. Connie Lippert's use of wedge weave creates a lively, abstracted pattern of light on the fields in prairie. Imaginary spaces are created by some artists to establish a certain mood or to refer to places or situations that are not easily understood in more literal pictorial manners. Jan Austen evokes black holes in her depiction of yarn cones in Chaotic Fragments 2. With clever cropping and our lively imaginations, an ordinary object morphs into something quite different. Shelley Sokolovsky's Concubine offers a layered understanding of place through time, earth processes, and the human behavior. Materiality of the different weft threads and weave structures suggests the many ways that one may experience and understand a place, and how it is always grounded in the physical. Ellen Ramsey references the patterning of carpet weaving traditions as she conjures the technology-driven metaverse. The electric colors and animated lines suggest that the portal to this virtual realm might involve some transforming experiences. Sharon Marcus's Sight conjures up her time in Lake Mungo and the artifacts she found that were reminders of the European colonial presence and the inevitable cultural changes that followed. The gentle folding of the fabric and the horizontal presentation suggest the well-trodden earth. Elizabeth Buckley in The Veils of Time and Inga Norgard in Fimbulvinter Ragnarok draw from mythological stories and distant times. Calling up distant cultural memories and planetary history are fruitful subjects for re-understanding and contextualizing our lives in a broader frame. Kathy Todd Hooker's tapestries condense time in place into a collage of personal references, an iconography that records the present and remembers the past. Each component in the image has personal relevance, and the multidimensional approach offers opportunities for reflection and speculation. Jackie Wollenberg invites us to imagine a story in which a watermelon is cast adrift in the sea. What extraordinary or perhaps fanciful events led to this wandering seafarer? Other artists take a more abstract, In the Garden of Dreams, Yael Laree places her figures in a dreamscape of textile patterns that flow like a river as they support the resting women who are caught up in their reveries while fish and birds support their drifting, dreaming bodies. Current events and social political issues. Social, political, and environmental issues are front and center for tapestry weavers, such as Erin Riley, whose work uses images culled from social media and selfies to explore current issues, especially those relating to women and their bodies. Erin's work recalls historical narrative tapestries at the same time as it positions itself clearly within the concerns of contemporary art. John Eric Ries's Babes in Arms comments on the role of guns in our culture. The three freestanding figures clumsily grasping their toy guns, or are they real? Rebecca Matzoff's Displaced Refugee Blanket refers to the global crisis of displaced people. The comfort and warmth of a small blanket is often not enough to assuage the struggles of the refugees' long journeys. Environmental concerns mark Jeanette Gross's Breaking Apart, which references Iceland's disappearing glaciers. Susan Maffei's Pandora box, Monarch Butterfly, highlights one of the many species whose numbers are dwindling due to humans' presence and their effects on the earth and its climate. The monarch butterfly is often used as a symbol for all of the species whose future is threatened. The predominance of Black and white seen in Sue Wiles' Life Without Choice underscores the stark political division surrounding a woman's right to choose. The blood red line alludes to the impact that such legislation has on women's bodies and lives. The abstracted image offers space for reflection and contemplation. Diedrich Bracken's The Cup is a Cloud is one of the many tapestries the artist has created to comment on issues of identity. The rawness of his edges reflects the physical threats that many people, described as other, face. Deborah Corsini's Golden Boy, Black Widow is an abstract reference to the fragile and beleaguered earth and the many assaults upon its existence. The struggle between the opposing forces ebbs and flows, stretches one direction, then the other, but never ends. As with artists working in any media, the human figure is also a potent subject for tapestry weavers. Don Burns revels in his love of color as he depicts a woman who might be sitting for her portrait or simply resting after a busy day. Her plainly colored clothes contrast with the pattern-bedecked interior of the room, creating a composition whose quiet focal point rests within a dynamic field. Alta Turner's Concession, Grudging to Alzheimer's, is an homage to her father who contracted Alzheimer's disease. The time involved in weaving such a memorial offers an opportunity to process this significant loss and to document the valued and valuable life he lived. In Ruth Manning's Social Graces, a scarf-bedecked young woman is captured in a reverie of another time, another place. The soft colors set the mood for her dreaming. A more whimsical portrayal of a human being is found in Joanne Sandberg's mixed media representation of a stereotyped woman she calls Peggy. No object or material was off limits for Joanne. Pat Williams' Certain Situations captures the uncertainty that preceded a major life change and move. Catherine Panapacker's Two Children on Unicycles finds two children navigating the perils of staying atop their unicycles on a cobblestone street. Their bodies twist and turn, barely staying within the confines of the picture plane. In Tricia Goldberg's Postcard for Angela, the weaving of a postcard she received from a now departed friend conjures up memories of Angela and documents Tricia's deep feelings for her. Archie Brennan's Partial Portrait, A.B., Once Upon a Summer, is a self-portrait, a partial self-portrait, in which his pinstripe suit jacket and knitted tie stand in for the artist. Many artists eschew representation of the world or abstract it to a point that a subject is no longer recognizable. Color is foregrounded in Joyce Hayes's work. Carefully dyed yarns allow for subtle gradations that create moods and evoke the inspiration for the work, often the natural world or musical compositions. The linear elements occlude the colors and mark the passage of the weaving up the work. Anna Bird Mays used cropped and abstracted letter forms in her designs. The color and composition might expand upon, confuse, or embellish the meaning of the words. Language is not always understandable. Michael Rohde refers more abstractly to language in Florid, in which the shapes and color placement suggest language codes without actually being legible. They also allude to certain textile patterns, especially Incan tokapu, whose meaning is contested. Leah Kuchma mentions typography as a component that contributed to the design of JASO. The dynamism of the black and white marks balances the bold use of yellow, both coming together to create the impact of this non-referential tapestry. Pattern is a feature of both woven designs and of the structure of the woven cloth itself, the grid. Nancy Taylor creates her own patterns in this long strip of weaving. The color contrast and dynamism of the varied patterns are enhanced by folding the strip into a more condensed presentation. Fannie Lee's San Tien Wan adopts an abstract approach to representing the influence of her Chinese American heritage. The subtle differences in the patterns and the contrasting colors create a lively conversation. Mary Lane's abstract Lattice is based on a collage of different textile elements composed in Photoshop. The blending of the source material results in an image that moves in and out of itself. Eleanor Steele's abstraction of the design for deconstruction, reconstruction involves just that, a breaking apart of an image and a reconfiguration of the components to create something that is new. The final category that we will look at is work that is not flat. The subject matter in this work includes all of the categories we have previously seen, but I wanted to separate these pieces to underscore one of the changes taking place in the field, namely a move away from the flat plane. The pleats in Mary Kester's tapestry Gavrinis Keep cause the fabric to fold and lift off the surface of the wall. The rock formations that she is depicting would have been subject to folding and uplift. The imagery on the cloth suggests the streams that flow over the land and the presence of humans. Sharon Crary's folded tapestry is crossed by a meandering, thin woven strip. The colors and the visual motion created by the undulating cloth and the winding woven strip evoke water and plants. The red in the piece offers a non-referential highlight that offers contrast to the otherwise analogous colors. In her response to an exhibition whose theme was Crossroads, Marcia Ellis depicted in a three-dimensional manner the intersecting highways many of us traverse and that often influence what kind of day we have. Alex Friedman uses eccentric weft to create undulating and bulging surfaces in her tapestries. She incorporates a variety of yarns in order to emphasize the materiality of the woven cloth. Although she considers the work to be abstract, the organic forms suggest landforms and landscapes. Susan Iverson is well known for her draped sculptural tapestries. The 6 parts of Slow Passage, with their elegant sling-like curves, offer abstracted glimpses of the world she encounters every day. Sarah Sweat embraces process, and her hands are rarely idle. I've been meaning to ask you, where is your spinning drop spindle?
In my pocket.
Oh, now I've lost my place. Her practice runs throughout her day and records, often in text, the world around her, as in this piece: prickly things: nettle, bramble, thistle, hawthorn, rose, teasel, me. The bright candy colors and the bending strips that make up Liz Poulos's Pink Wave Rising belie the thoughts about political events that were on her mind as she designed this tapestry. Cynthia Martinez's Altered is a freestanding woven sculpture that is inspired by the world around her. Jennifer Sargent embraces a variety of weave sculpt structures and techniques in her tapestries. The references to textiles such as carpets that are evoked by the black and white stripes contrast with the decorative floral motifs more commonly associated with wall hangings and printed fabrics. The undulating shapes and the chevron warps suggest totemic objects. I hope this brief look at the field of contemporary tapestry in the United States has given you insight into the varied subjects, styles, and modes of making employed by tapestry weavers. I enjoyed putting this together very much and spending time looking at so much inspiring work.
Recording this. That was such an amazing lecture.
Thank you.
Amazing lecture. So is anybody inspired?
Oh, thank you, Mary.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you just want to hit a loom right now. Beautiful. Thank you, Mary Lane. You know, we can say we've been saying thank you, Mary Lane, for decades. And we're going to keep saying it. Thank you, Mary Lane, on so many levels. Beautiful, beautiful. Our next presenter, again, needs no introduction, but I'm giving her one. And that is Susan Martin Maffei. Susan is an internationally known tapestry artist whose background includes art studies at the Art Students League in New York City, tapestry training at Milan in Paris, apprenticeship and studio work at the Shure Tapestry Studio in New York City, and conservation of antique textiles at Art Weave Gallery, also in New York. She's been weaving her work professionally since 1985, and she has taught, lectured, and exhibited in the US and abroad, and has work in both public and private collections. We are honored, privileged, and can't wait to see and hear Susan's. Could I ask you a question? What is that thing that keeps dropping?
It's water.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
water bottle.
Okay, just asking, okay.
Thank you, Mary. And it's been so wonderful to see all familiar faces. It's really been too long since we've all. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I'll get louder. I said it's so wonderful to see all your faces. You know, it's been so long since we've been together now. So I'm just going to give you a short synopsis of what I've been doing now over probably the past, I guess, 5 or 6 years. And I'm not a very good computer person, so yell out if you can't hear me, or I do something with the computer that the screen doesn't work. I do want to thank especially Jean-Pierre, Yael, and Jackie for inviting me to speak today, and especially to Jackie for all her dedication and support of the tapestry world for so long. We really appreciate you, Jackie. We love you. Okay, let's go. Kind of as a contrast to Mary's, that I didn't really think about it kind of falling in place that way. When we think of historic tapestry, we think of narrative, pictorial culture of that time. These are just two examples, European and South American. Sometimes, especially in South American, we have maybe what you would call abstract, but I call it more a symbolism, because it is also narrative, and it is also often political or maybe religious, and it falls basically into the same category. I've always leaned toward the narrative, always, and pictorial, with some symbolism, primarily in the fact of I used a lot of pattern at one time. And this would be possibly references of that earlier work. It can be both religious, as in the example on the left, which is a celebration of St. Francis of Assisi at the large cathedral in New York, St. John the Divine. Again, using a lot of pattern, but telling a story. Very often, my work of that period was about events in New York, because New York really was my muse. I live with millions of people every day and all of the really interesting events that happened. It could also be a simple event in the city, like going to a movie house to see a movie and being in that movie house with all of those people. Now I don't live in the city anymore. Now I live in a little rural hamlet up on the Hudson River, in a very beautiful part of New York, the Hudson River Valley. The hamlet is on the river, and nature has become my muse now. I live among millions of insects, millions of animals, millions of birds, all kinds of things. And it's wonderful, but it's a very different way of living. I haven't forgotten my muse of people. I still have friends, and I still often include man in some of the work that I've been doing, but represented in a more symbolic way than the pictorial way that I used to do things. So over the past 5 or 6 years, I've been working on a series that I call Pandora's Box. And it really is about all of the animals in the world, and plants too, that are changing because of our imprint. And I use in each one of the pieces, thank you, each one of the pieces, a tunic that represents man in effect of what's happening to these animals. And I'm using tapestry as the primary interest, or the primary item in all of these, but I'm using a very different format now. It's not flat. And I'm doing Pandoras, if you want. So I'm using a combination of tapestry, book art, some crochet. There might be some drawing. There might be some crochet in there in order to make these Pandoras. One of the very early Pandoras that I did in this session is a small one. It's only about just a little bit bigger than a foot square and 4 inches high. And it is about a particular item that many of my age, I'm sure, are familiar of, which is the ladybug that used to appear when we were young. Every spring, you would have hundreds of them sometimes in your house. They have disappeared. Where are they? We don't have them anymore. And it It is one of our icon insects, if you want, and it happens to be the state bug of New York, where I live. That I hadn't really thought about even states having state bugs, you know. Anyway, I thought it might be interesting for you to look about or to hear about how it evolved, how I came to think about it, and how I ended up actually constructing this very, very early box that then led to a continuous. There are 12 boxes now in the Pandora box series. It started with, now how come I'm not getting that one, Mary?
That's the next one.
Oh, okay. All right. It started with a piece of recycled weaving. It was when I do a particular kind of forest selvage weaving that's usually in squares and rectangles. So when you're finished, there's no ends to work with. And I was playing with trying to extend it in the sense that I'm making shapes and pushing it to see how complicated I could make the shape. And I had intended them for another project that didn't work out, that didn't come to fruit. But I had woven these little ladybugs on it, and I got interested, and so I looked up ladybugs and found out that the 9-spot ladybug, which is one of our native bugs, at one time it appeared in every state in the United States. So we all know about it. We have little poems about it. Ladybug, ladybug, fly away, your house is on fire. We all know that one. Anyway, so then I started playing with that again and weaving little tiny bugs. They're probably about twice the size, seeing how small I could go. And with an interest in some new materials that are coming out, looking at this stainless steel now that is wrapped in silk that you can get in colors. And when you weave it and you're done, you can actually form it a little bit. And so use that in the weft, in particular for the legs of the ladybug. And then I put these ladybugs that I had woven in a little box, which is one of my first little boxes in the book art things that I was playing with, and put a thorn in there. The ladybugs in there are dead, and the thorn is symbolizing actually the pain of losing something from your memory that is so dear that you don't see anymore. And then I constructed a bigger box in order to hold these kind of things that I was playing with. What do I do with it? Okay, let's try to exhibit it. And so I put it into a clamshell box, much in the form of book arts that I've been doing for a while, and placed them so that I have done a bit of crocheting on some of the thorns to add aphids for the ladybugs. The ladybugs are very important, or used to be a very important part of the agriculture in upstate New York, and they have disappeared, and that is a shame because they took care of a lot of the natural predators, which instead are being used by pesticides. Cornell University has a special project that's called the Ladybug Project that has been encouraging people to take pictures of the ladybug when you see it and upload it to their site, because I think in the middle of last century, they were really almost extinct. We thought they were extinct. And then about, there were 2 instances 20 and 10 years ago where they found just a couple here and there. So they are looking to see if there's anything that they can do to help bring them back as we look more and more to organics that we want to eat. We don't want the pesticides. So that's an example of the very early first box that led then to, I've done 7 more on beetles. Beetles seem to be having a problem, and beetles don't seem to get enough attention. The next group of boxes that I looked at were plants. And this happens to be one of a tree called the honey locust tree. And because I was using thorns as a symbol in most of my boxes, someone pointed out to me that there was this incredible tree in the little hamlet that I live that had these gigantic thorns. I had been using the locust tree, which has maybe an inch or two. Sure enough, I went and I looked at this wonderful tree, couldn't even get your arms around it. And it had all of these thorns. Some of them are a foot long. It's just incredible. It's a beautiful, beautiful tree. And I collected some of the branches that had fallen and brought them back and had them in the studio for quite a while, just looking at them. And then I looked up the tree. It's called the honey locust tree, and it is a native to the United States. It is a prehistoric tree. It is a tree that has existed here since the animals like the mammoth roamed our area. And the scientists believe that the thorns developed in order to protect the pods, which have a sweet taste to them. They're edible. Native Americans use them for food and medicine. The thorns are extremely hard, and the wood is also very dense and rot resistant. So during colonial times in our area, they used the wood. It was important in shipbuilding. The thorns were used as nails in the shipbuilding, as were the wood. And what happened during that time is because of that, we then exported a lot of the trees to the other countries to be used for shipbuilding. And it is invasive in most of those others. It's very, very fast growing, puts a lot of nutriments back into the soil. Well, we decided here in this country, we didn't like this tree that had all of these giant thorns. And so during the 30s, during the Dust Bowl years, we cultivated it not to have the thorns. And we used it in trying to reconstitute the land during the Dust Bowl. And so guess what? In the Midwest, it can't be called invasive because the definition of an invasive is non-native. So they call it a weed. And it is a gorgeous tree. And unfortunately, the people that bought the house that this wonderful tree was on, they cut it down. They did not like the tree, and they're rare now. You don't see them very often because we're counter cultivating. Anyway, for this one, after that long dissertation, it's quite large, as you can see. It's about 4 feet by 4 feet. It is a construction of wood in this case, because the piece that Mary showed, the monarch one, is also huge. When I open it up, I mean, it's, bigger than a person. And I was making it out of the book board and book cloth, and it became too cumbersome. And so in the bigger ones, I have switched to constructions of wood. So this is a frame box for that. And the tunic, I wove a tunic for it. And the tunic is woven actually all of plant materials. It's mostly linen. There's a lot of ramie in there. I've dyed it with black walnut trees that grow in our local area. And I've woven it in strips that connect. And in the areas using the slit, what I'm doing is I'm moving the spaces apart in the weaving, moving the warp or shrinking it back. And in doing that, I can control the edges and make these shaped strips that overlap each other. So when you see it, it is flat, but they're overlapping. And using hatching in each one of the strips, I've been able to really give it a much more dimensional kind of feel that's very much like the bark of this particular tree. And then I have taken those wonderful branches that I found, and there are 2 insects that you will always find on this tree. One insect will only be on that tree, not on any other tree. There's some sort of companionship for that tree. And I decided to weave these little bugs, again, using that stainless steel technique, and also, again, using the technique where I can push open the spaces or close them, and I can shape the bugs and then fold them and stuff them and make them dimensional and bend them in the way that I want them. Cannot not have birds. I mean, the world is so filled of birds and they're so beautiful. And with my background in conservation, I've handled so many pre-Columbian items. I've been very influenced by pre-Columbian in my work. And of course, the pre-Columbians are famous for their feather tunics. So this one is a feather tunic, and it's about the black-billed gull, which is the rarest and most endangered bird in the world. It is native only to New Zealand, and it is a freshwater river gull, not a seagull. So it's an unusual gull. And it, because of the introduction of mammals that are predators in New Zealand and feral cats, the use of pesticides, the change of their habitat being shrunk with people wanting to live along the river, where they would normally have their nests. And about 10 years ago, I think it was published that 2013, their population has decreased by 80%. There are only 600 of them left at that time. And so probably, it's pretty hard for them to continue, when the numbers get that low. So what I did with this I wove this tunic, and I wove this tunic, tying in each individual feather as I was weaving in the more traditional manner that the pre-Columbians used. And I put 2 nests in the bottom of this box that also, each one has a little skull of a gull, not that gull, vagrant gulls, and the eggs are actually cocoons of one of the large silkworms that happen to be the same color and size of the eggs. And the nest itself these cocoons hang from trees. It must be quite a sight. I can only think of Andy Goldsworthy doing something like that. And if it wound in a skein, it looks almost exactly like a nest of the actual bird. So this has been put in the corner of each of the bottom of the box. The box itself is constructed to be a coffin, because I think the outlook on this particular animal is pretty dim. And it is quite large. It's a little bit bigger than 4 feet actually long. And on the top of it, I have just carved I've stained and carved just a single river running through it on the top with kind of an empty landscape. We can't forget the mammals. There are mammals everywhere. And where I live, porcupines are abundant. You see them most often as roadkill on the street. However, in northern Mexico, they have been on the endangered list since 1984. And in 2 of the states in my area, Maryland and Vermont, they are of concern now. They're watching because they're so high in lumber and maple syrup. And the porcupines during the summer eat the deciduous leaves. In the winter, they eat the bark. And when they eat the bark, they can destroy the tree. So they have reintroduced the fisher, which is the main predator of the porcupine. And it has reduced the numbers, yes, but it has also decimated the snowshoe rabbit. And the snowshoe rabbit is a very important part of the food chain. So it's causing all kinds of issues because of that. So I wove a tunic that is compromised of the two of the roadkill have donated their quills. So I have washed them, sorted them in size and color, put a hole in the top of them, cut off the dangerous edge end of them so nobody can get stuck. And as I wove this tunic, I threaded the weft through each one of them. A porcupine, one porcupine on average has about 30,000 quills on their body. My tunic has about 3,000. It's quite a different thing. And the yarn used in the actual tunic itself is a mohair, a kid mohair, but it's very reminiscent of the texture, color, and feel of the fisher itself. The fisher is a beautiful animal, but it's quite violent. It kills the porcupine by attacking the head, so it doesn't get any of the quills. Anyway, I put it in a box. There's a close-up of the quill, as you can see. And the box I carved to look kind of like the bark, which is really the problem between this disagreement between us and the porcupine. And there's a picture of the box as it's closed. Now, in all of these Pandora boxes, and thinking about the traditions of tapestry and the first couple of pieces that we looked at that involve narrative, that involve pictorial and symbolic, that involve political or religious, and also culture of their time. And I feel like even though I'm using a very different format, if you want, or form, I feel like I am still working in the historical tradition of tapestry. It's just a different approach to the whole thing. The Pandora box series, I think, is finished. And now I moved on. I'm starting a new series, and I just finished the first one this year of that series. And it still has to do with animals. Thinking of all the years, Archie and I, we didn't fly very much. We always had tents, and we had that little come along thing we used to pull around when we did our thing. And in the morning, we would camp somewhere in a forest. We get up in the morning, and you'd look out, and the dew comes down, and the dew covers the meadow. And in the meadow, you see all of these lovely, beautiful little nets that are kind of full of little bubbles, the spiders out there kind of doing. And I became curious about the spiders. What are those spiders? So I looked, I was reading a book on animal architecture and came across this little clue to who this culprit might be, and found that this spider is the most abundant spider in the whole world. It appears in every country except Antarctica, and it doesn't weave orb. It is called the sheet weaver money spider. And it weaves plain weave little nests that it puts on there. And because the dew comes in, it kind of kills the nest. And when they need to go from one area to another, they don't walk over. They do what's called ballooning. And they take their silk, they climb up, they attach their silk to something higher. They wait for a breeze, and they fly, and they just fly over, and then they land in a new thing, and they build another nest. And so they're really quite amazing. So I thought to do something on this wonder. I consider it one of the first of my wonder series. So I started by weaving, again, multi-selvage thing. I do all of my things multi-selvage, really. And I wove these blades of grass, if you like, pretty much the same size as blades of grass. And I started with a loom that was 7 foot wide. I wove all these blades of grass. And when I took it off and I rolled it up, I had a little tiny clump of grass. So this little tiny clump of grass, I put into a recycled box. I had a box laying around. It fit perfectly. And then I thought, okay, but now these, we don't see them, but these little hammocks that the spider makes are suspended by scaffolding because the hammock is not sticky. And so what happens when the bugs fly, they hit the scaffolding and they fall in. Spider lives underneath, and then that's when he gets his meal. So I made these branches by crocheting some paper yarn, linen paper, and wrapped them around wire, and then bent them in order to, so that they look like branches. And these branches then will hold the scaffolding. And so what I did then is kind of a top view. You can see on the left of the little hammock that's being suspended by these branches that I make. And then I had another project that didn't go well, and I had this backdrop that I put up so that you could actually see the scaffolding, because if you don't have the black in the back, you can't even see the gold threads. And I wove a little bit of fungus on the back of the, on the bottom of the box. And then when I took this recycled bookboard and cloth to use the backdrop, I had an extra part to bend over. So it made this little kind of hall in the back. And in that hall, I started thinking about that spider, and there must be some, it's the most abundant spider in the world, but there must be something that eats it or bothers it or what. And I looked up snakes, and I found this thread snake to go with the weaver spider. And this thread snake is incredible. It's quite small. It's only about the thickness of a wire, but it's about 12 inches long. It has scales all around it, which is unusual because snakes don't have scales on their stomach. It's blind. It's iridescent. It glows in certain light. It lives in the ground, and it eats the eggs of spiders and larvae, and it just seemed to fit. So I wove a blind golden thread snake to go with the sheep weaver money spider. And the final thing is this. It's I put it into a plexi, and so you can actually walk all around of it. Each section of it has a view of this. And there happens to be I found out that Britain is crazy about spiders, and they have all these groups of men that get together to talk about spiders and procreation of and all kinds of things. It's fascinating. It's very funny. And it's one of those dangerous things when you go on the internet that you can't get away from because it's so, But anyway, there is a folk tale about this particular one. And the folk tale is that if you find one of these spiders on your person, it means that he or she is weaving you a brand new, wonderful set of clothes. And that means that you're going to have a better financial future. So I hope so. So I thank you very much for listening to my.
Good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
We're at like 11:20 right
Yeah,
now.
we're good shape because these are 2 or 15 minutes.
Okay. It's gonna be fun. Okay, I'm going to introduce you, Sally. Okay. Thank you, Susan. Our next presenter is Sally Williamson, and her talk is El Tuito Memories. My high school yearbook photos do not show me as part of a swim team, as part of a sports team or choir. Instead, I'm seated at a table, carding wool and spinning with the drop spindle. Workshops such as Yael and Jean-Pierre's El Tuito retreats kept me connected to weaving during the busy years of raising children and working. Now that my daughters are grown and my career is winding down, I am able to return to the activities that I love: travel, snow skiing, and weaving. Happily living in Golden, Colorado with my skis and my looms.
Thank you.
Yes, Sally Williamson.
Thanks. Yeah. So I am a recreational weaver. I've been weaving for a long time, but I don't have a grand collection of work. But I've been very fortunate to study with some really amazing weavers. And as I said, I'm ready and just itching to get back to it and really start expressing myself. When Jean-Pierre asked me to present some memories of our times in El Tuito, I realized as I was pulling together slides that El Tuito and Jackie Wollenberg are intertwined. In fact, this is the very first time I've seen Jackie outside of Mexico. So I think from 2003 to 2015 or 16, there were yearly workshops. I'm not sure if any years were ever missed. Let's see, how do I go to next slide? Yeah, there we go. But Jackie was always there, and maybe Jackie, you've attended all of them. I attended about half of them, and yeah, the workshops took place in at Casa Tejedora, which means Tejedora means weaver in Spanish, and the home is just gorgeous, and most of the top floor is a studio. And then there are their bedrooms and wonderful gathering places. For those of you who do not know where El Tuito is, most of you are familiar with Puerto Vallarta and in the center of Banderas Bay. And El Tuito is down where that star is. It's about 1 hour drive south of Puerto Vallarta on a very windy road. And you do feel like you're going to another place. So El Tuito right now, I looked up, I guess population is about 3,000, but I'm sure when Yael and Jean-Pierre first went there, it was probably, who knows, hundreds, maybe not thousands. It's built around a central square, and most of the homes there is a delay there. Most of the homes there are made from very local materials. On the right there, you can see Elaine Todd walking down the street. That was quite a while ago. There were also some expats who built homes there, and they were very different, also made from many local materials, but very fanciful, very grand. We had the opportunity to tour one of them, the French lady. Remember the French lady down the street? Yeah. So very creative. Little delay there. Okay, there we go. So this is a photo of Yael and Jean-Pierre, and they welcomed us into their home and really into their lives, in the lives that they live when they're in Mexico. And with the help of their neighbor, Chayo, they really created an environment for us to step away from our home, our lives back home, and just live village life and really think about design and tapestry and connect with other weavers. It really was magical. So thank you. It really was magical. Their home is made from local materials, but being artists, it doesn't look plain. Beautiful ironwork, a spiral staircase that used to be on the casita that Jackie used to stay in. I think they've moved it. Then lots of opportunities to talk. We see Pam and Victoria and Jackie there on the veranda. We took a lot of our meals there, or taking breaks and just talking about design, talking about life. This is a photo of the kitchen and dining room. There's Yael being helped by Chayo preparing meals. It was really an amazing, just like this gathering here, it was an amazing feat to bring together so many people and spend time together for a full week and get everybody fed and then all of the instruction. It was just amazing. This was an early dinner. In the early days, I see Elaine, I see Jackie, I see Yael's cousin, Sarah, a few other people. Delicious food, locally sourced. We tried to eat outside as often as we could. But we also had some big dinners inside. And one year we had, it's a little dark to see, but we had a local band come and play for us, serenade us while we ate dinner outside al fresco. It was really, really fun. But most of the time we spent in the studio. And here's a photo of the studio with Jean-Pierre's low warp loom. And then the student looms in the background usually had between 7 and 10 students. And sometimes we were all able to fit, on location, but sometimes we stayed in some other areas as well, other places in town. Here's Jackie in the studio. We each had a desk to work at so we could work on design. And then we had our loom, and Jackie, you might have a Archie style pipe loom there, I think. Yeah. Yael's designs in the background. You can see Yael on the corner there, and Jackie and my daughter came one year, which was really special. When Jean-Pierre wasn't working at his loom, sometimes we had the opportunity to work, and if there were more people than looms, we'd work side by side. So there's Elaine and Annalore, yeah. So, and Jackie's documenting, which you'll see. I have a couple of photos of Jackie documenting. So I'm documenting Jackie documenting. So teachers and weavers, this was, I think Jean-Pierre gave me this photo. So lots of familiar faces you'll see. I think that's Jenny, Candy, Kasaya, myself, the woman from Canada, Elaine, Jackie, Victoria, Donna, and Pam, and Louise Abbott. Yeah. So like I said, and I think Jean-Pierre might have given me this one, or maybe Susan. Yeah, Jackie is El Tuito to me. It's just part of the experience. And we had Jean-Pierre and Yael to learn from. Susan, Sarah came one time, but really we learned so much from each other. And particularly with Jackie, I was familiar with larger scale tapestry. And so to see her fine, detailed tapestry was just amazing to me. Yael and Jean-Pierre, I stole this off the internet. A photo, I did not take that photo.
Pretty beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great photo. Just the inspiration of Yael's drawings. I remember we had a lot of instruction about looking at positive and negative space, and then working with color. There's a student loom there on the right. And then translating those cartoons, those drawings into something that you could weave, and selecting the colors, making our rosary, which was our threads, interlaced of the colors we were going to use. So a lot of design work. And then being in the studio around this collage of a lot of their work and their exercises, just having that around you was so inspirational, and being able to look at it from the back and see what they had done, and just so much to learn. And then just watching Jean-Pierre weave, just the way he, moves his hands, and it was just so inspirational. In the morning, we would often have some inspirational reading or learn about a new technique. And then in the evenings, a couple of evenings during the week, we would have a more in-depth discussion about a topic. So this is their studio, and a collection of cassette tapes we used to listen to. You remember those? All kinds of music from all over the world. The very first time that I went, our assignment was to walk around town and there we go. Walk around town, take photos, and being in El Tuito for the very first time, you're just seeing everything with fresh eyes. And so very interesting rock work with brick, lots of bougainvillea, lots of different vegetation, vines and things. And so these were some of the interpretations of the photos that we took, and then the tapestries we wove that week. And then a few other samples of tapestries that had been woven over the years. You see Elaine there in the middle with the kind of a abstract design. Victoria's kimonos on the left, and Donna Millen had a very interesting, I think, Tibetan wall hanging that was her inspiration, and Jenny had some photos of boats. So over the years, just lots of different topics. Susan provided me with this photo. As she spoke a few minutes ago, her pre-Columbian textiles, she taught us about those and the symbology in those, but then also the forced selvage technique. So we took our turn at creating little tunics, and we're displaying those on bobbins there, and they were woven in one piece with a slit in the middle where the neck would go through, but they were little miniatures. They're Barbie tunics. We needed pink, but and then Sarah Sweck came, and if you're familiar with Sarah's work, she's a storyteller, and she was teaching us how to think about storytelling in a way of a series of cartoons. So she starts with an apple in black and white, and there's a bite taken out of it, and all of a sudden it's in Technicolor, and then the apple's eaten, and an idea of how to from a progression, how to tell a story. So we took our hand at it, and I think Victoria's was a key and a lock with the box, and this was our class's final products. So just really fun to think about that way of telling a story. So the next few, as I said, just learning from the other weavers was a big part of the experience. We have a few photos here of Jackie in the studio and Jackie's love of birds. Cutting off the loom. And then some of the weavers through the years that we had the opportunity to spend time with. There's Victoria, Jenny, and then Candy Walsworth, who's a very good friend of mine. Can't pronounce her last name. Yeah, so not only did we get together and share ideas, but we made some really close friends, excursions and exhibits. So sometimes our excursions were just to the other side of El Tuito, and I think your friend Bill was a painter, and there's Jackie, always with the dog. Always with the dog. We had many walks in the morning to the graveyard and at sunrise, and that was just a great way to start the day, and just beautiful. when we weren't able to all fit at Casa Teodora, some of us stayed at the ranch, and we actually have a picture of Jackie at the top. There was a little water over pour there, and Jackie's doing laps in the pool. And more dogs, of course. And then when we didn't eat at home, sometimes we'd go out for dinners, sometimes lunches. Yeah, there was picture art there. Yeah. Yeah, there, Jackie and Art right there. And then the Botanic Gardens. Remember the lunches there? Beautiful, beautiful. Not as good as the food at Casa Teodora, but a nice little outing. Sometimes we would go to the Ricea factory, I guess, and you could see the plants that the Ricea liqueur is made from, and we'd have lunch or dinner there. We would go to Puerto Vallarta for the Friday art walk. So Louise has made a new friend. And then the next section I'm going to call day drinking. So we would get up before the sunrise, and Jean-Pierre would drive us to our ranch, and they would milk the cows, and they mix it with ricea and chocolate. And since the milk was right from the cow, it was hot. So it was like a spiked hot chocolate. And we're drinking this before sunrise. And so you can see Pam enjoying herself. Candy's starting to look a little wasted. And as the evening went on, as the sun was rising, you know, it was starting to look a little wobbly. And there we have Jackie. Jackie's documenting again. Jackie's taking a photo there. As the sun rose, we realized we had some people watch, or some animals watching us. These were just on the other side of the fence, and we wobbled home. So this is us walking through town at about 6 a.m., completely off our rockers. I'm getting close. So we had many beach excursions. This was Yalapa. And the pie lady. So she would make the pies and carry them on her head. And some beaches that probably are no longer as pristine, but we had the opportunity to go to some really beautiful beaches. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Mixed feelings. Looking, I had so many emotions pulling this out.
Yeah.
Tying heddles at the beach. I don't know if you remember that.
Of course, what else do you do at the beach?
I know.
Tie heddles.
Who are these weird people? Interesting churches along the way. We even found some wild cotton growing on the side of the road, and we collected that. Some people were ambitious and they were going to, yeah. I'm not sure who contributed this photo. It might have been Christine Rivers. She sent me a few, but I think you guys did a river trip. Estuary. Oh, okay. And then there were let's see, the trip to Oaxaca. Yeah, Mexico City and then Oaxaca.
Teotihuacan.
Yeah, Teotihuacan, the weavers there and how they were experimenting with new designs, incorporating their old. And then the weavers from our group paired up with local weavers, and they spent a week at their home doing collaborations. And then the last that I have here is we had several gallery shows, and I think the last one might have been at the Peter Gray, Peter Gray. And here we have Yael and Sarah. They were both exhibiting. There was a theme of maize or corn because our group had done a sequence of tapestries around corn and the role that it has played in Mexico for so long. And here we have Jackie documenting again. She must have a lot of good photos. But and you know, and a dear colleague, Gabriel Canales, and his paintbrush tapestries. But I wanted to end with the maze tapestries. And so I think this photo was taken maybe before I even attended one of the workshops, but a field trip out to the field to see corn growing, and the inspiration for this whole sequence of tapestries that were done. I think at one point there were 50 tapestries, and these are all Jackie's. I couldn't, of course, couldn't show everyone's, but I wanted to highlight Jackie's. So in the center, the tapestry, sin más, no ideas. So without corn, there's no country. And so it's so a part of Mexican culture, and the fact that, you know, corn's being genetically modified, and just how, you know, how that's going to change the culture. So, and I'll leave it with 2 more of Jackie's beautiful tapestries. So.
Yeah. How'd I do?
As Mary preps for Catherine Pennepecker, I will read her bio. Sally, that was a
Heartthrob.
That was a heartthrob. That was a heartthrob for sure. Beautiful. Our next presenter and final presenter before lunch is Catherine Pennepecker, who is a textile artist and visual and community artist living in Philadelphia. I first met Catherine in El Tuito years ago. She graduated from Penn State University with a major in English and a minor in art. In the late 80s, she apprenticed for 4 years with third-generation French tapestry weaver Pierre Larochette and his partner Yael Lurie, a painter and designer for tapestry. Catherine then went to Aubusson in France to continue weaving as an artist in residence. She also had the opportunity to be an artist in residence, and I may pronounce this wrong, Hachioji, Japan, through the Japan Foundation. Though still occasionally weaving pictorial tapestry, she tends to weave with unusual and shaggy materials and on random frames or fences as her loom. For the last many years, she has considered herself simply an artist and an uplifter. She weaves, writes, paints large textile murals, and often as possible, determines ways to bring art, especially textiles, to the streets and to everyday people. She works with those who are with and without shelter, in active addiction or recovery, and those who are with, I really screwed this up. Let's try this again. She works with those who are with and without shelter, in active addiction or recovery, someone, and yours. No matter the circumstance of ability or disability, Catherine believes that art is a form of harm reduction and wellness support, and that the loom welcomes all in a curious and unassuming way, almost as a portal to engage in life and thrive. So, Catherine.
Thanks so much for the invitation, Jean-Pierre and Yael. I'm so excited to be here with you all, friends and colleagues, to share with you some thoughts and images of what I've been up to lately and over the years, as it relates to my solo studio work and my community art social change work. To do this, I've compiled many photos, but first, though, I wanted to share some of my lately thoughts. Autumn time, a good time for a gym jam of reflection, breathe, catch up on the to-dos, the drink more waters, the continually making the distinction between doing and being, often in search of equipoise, balance, taking time, finding time, giving time. A construct, I realize, but nonetheless, these numbers of 24/7, 52, 365, though innocent, have a whole lot of pressure associated with them. The pace and demands of life are endless. That's just the way it is, though. Okay, so you're catching me at what feels like an intense time in my life. Do you ever feel like you're invisible and you're invincible? And also invisible and invincible kind of at the same time, but not? Crazy. Two wings of a bird, grace and hard work, but I'd like to add two more: vulnerability and courage. So here I am, born and raised around the Philadelphia area, delighted to be here in Fort Bragg with all of you. I left for a few chapters and then returned, college educated with a few apprenticeships, plenty of travel and never enough. Been back and situated for a while, grounded. I love my life. My wife and family are my rock and roots, the song in my heart. I'm doing what I love to do. I'm doing what I know to do. I'm doing what I'm meant to do. I weave, I paint, I write. I'm a studio artist. I'm a community artist. Gig to gig, creating the next, go, 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 do, do, do. I know we all relate to that. Planning the next peace of mind project, a sanctuary studio, a new body of work, be it for Ukraine, for homeless men and women, for dear hearts in active addiction and recovery, for seniors parked in front of a TV, disability sensitivity, communities traumatized by gun violence, etc. The queue of concerns, just how to ignite and entice our hearts for peace and social justice is what I think about a lot. Art for all, dignity for all. All this in the backdrop of the White House toxic blues. Heavy dharma, corrupt pharma, news drip, fear grip. Balancing community time with studio time. I love people, and I really like to be alone in my studio. And then there's the showing and the selling of the work, the knocking on the doors of possibilities for galleries and museums, residencies, fellowships, shattering the glass ceiling of my art career and being extraordinary. I'm doing the best I can, as I can. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. I think I am. I am. Isn't this now the magical time of the day? It's late morning, light glistening, the sun eager to rest. And then sure enough, that moon somewhere, it's going to come. It will be here. Marvelous self. Oh, I love life. What a gift. Everything, everywhere, everyone, nothing, nowhere, no one. Invisible, invincible, confidence, vulnerability, courage, love, connection, hard work, grace. Where there is life and hope, where there's purpose, meaning, belonging, let's abide. Each of us doing and being our own part in life. Again, thanks for the welcome, Jackie. It's great to be here and honor you. Jean-Pierre, Yael, right? I'm going to share a bunch of images now of my work over the years. sort of hold tight to your seatbelt, because how do you put together a presentation in like 15 minutes, right? So what I'm going to do is just show on each couple, I think I have like 15 slides. I'm going to show a bunch of images. They're going to be a mixture of my work over a period of time, and then also currently. It's going to be a combination of both painting and weaving, lots of painting, and also some community work.
It's just a little time lag.
Oh, okay. So thank you. There is a timeline. Okay. So, so think of this quick presentation, if you would, as a speedy visual letter from me to you. A picture tell of 1,000 words of a long time span about form and process, personal inquiry of solo studio time mixed with social activism and community time. You might really be annoyed with me because I put no materials or sizes or years. Okay, so it's okay. You'll get over it. But I thought it was more important to invite you to just look, look for color, look for expression, gesture of the hands, of whether it be painting or the weaving. And then I'll just set the pace best I can with showing you my slides. So these are our tapestries that I was doing in Berkeley, California with Jean-Pierre Yael. The one on the top left actually is the one that very naively I wrote them a letter and I said, I took a 1-credit class in college. I'd like to come out and apprentice with you. Right. So you remember, right? Yeah.
They said hired.
Yeah. Well, the top left, it was very, and I'm so delighted. I just want to say I'm my dear friend Judy Daggett Head. We apprenticed together for 3.5 years, and she's here, and we're having a beautiful reunion today as well. So a little lag, excuse me. Okay.
Maybe try it again. Maybe it didn't really hit.
Okay, I see it here. Try it again, you think?
Yeah, I don't. Let's just see if we can get it to activate again.
Oh, there we go. So from California, I went to Aubusson. This is some of the work. Okay, hold on. We're back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, bear with us. It's good. I just hit that.
There you are.
Okay. So I was inspired by.
It's
Technology and revolt.
Yes, technology and revolt. Yeah. Okay. So inspired from seeing an exhibit of Matisse in France, I did a little series of paper cutouts and small weavings. I started painting some more. So you'll see the paintings on the top left, but again, color and gesture is what I don't know how much of a lag.
Yeah,
So
just wait. I think
okay.
It's been a little variable, but I think eventually it will catch up.
These are pieces from some time I spent in Japan. Paintings and weavings. Again, I'm not telling you which was which, just. I had the chance to go to Argentina with Jean-Pierre Yael, and then back in Philadelphia, I was doing a lot of paintings, but then curious of how they would translate. So connecting with community and translating the rollerbladers at John's Water Ice, for example, you know, or watching a woman sort of moving her hands, the gesture with birds, you know. So this is just sort of my palette and my curiosity. Studio peace of mind I've found over the years. I need the balance of engaging with people and then just being alone in the studio. Some more studio work and partner pieces of paintings and weavings. Sometimes just painting. I had the chance to go to Turkey and was inspired by the color and the materials, learning a little bit of how to fix antique carpets. I just was so interested in that. So I went to Turkey, and so this is some of the work from that. Experimenting with material, Q-tips and paper matches and rubber bands and bicycle tire wheels and aluminum foil, and having chances to set up a loom between building forms and warping, you know, just kind of like finding a loom anywhere, right, between structure and getting the chance to explore materials. So and then at the time, I also had a traditional baslice. On the left top picture there, you'll see that's when I was working the two kids on the unicycles tapestry that you saw. Always sort of echoing back to inspirations from line and gesture, the fine woven line, gates, fences, looms, people, what keeps us away from one another, what brings us close to one another. Piece projects, weaving with, using metaphor, paper matches, thousands of paper matches I would weave into pieces, and every couple rows would, you know, for the sake of integrity, as you learn, right, would weave with cotton or wool or silk or whatever, and then pack it really tightly, and then weave in one case there with red shoestring licorice. So that project was entice our hearts for peace, right? The one on the bottom left was the red shoestring licorice, and then on the right was paper matches. So thousands of paper matches. I would get a flame retardant and just coat the match area. Excuse me, I would put the flame retardant on the woven shagginess around it, and then have these events conflagrations, you know, and set them on fire, so that just the weaving you can see on the far right would be not ruined, not destroyed, but charred, right? So it was kind of controlled in that way. The middle right one there is, it's the Mercedes-Benz symbol, or is it the peace symbol? You know, it was Sierra Leone, the blood diamond, conflicts, you know, with America and the rest of the world. You know, it's just like an ongoing. I mean, I should have right now on my loom, I should, but I don't yet, but with Ukraine and Russia, right? So it's like always just thinking, you know, what's going on in the world. I love bringing people together. So, you know, working with homeless folks without shelter, creating studio, sometimes, you know, getting a gig. Because I think it was really inspired from Jean-Pierre and Yael, you know, just to like and then when I was in Oberstdorf, I remember thinking, okay, you want to make a go of it, but like, how can you possibly make a go of it as an artist, right? So I was so inspired by the lifestyle of do what you love. So and then you kind of become a magnet. So that being said, I love, like I said, studio solo time, but I love people. So I would always figure out ways to bring the studio into places. And so these are some pictures of bringing some floor looms into shelters where I would have, say, like a 10-week gig. I'd be able to get in there a couple of days a week, set up studio. Another example of bringing the loom. Let's see, sort of building looms out of wood, hammer and nails, showing folks simply how to warp it, and then weaving. Being invited to a conference, you know, I have here that sort of the homeless shelters and the fancy schmancy conferences, you know, and so I think I had the chance, I had a chance to speak at to not speak, but to do a project with folks at a conference. So we took a coat rack and warped it. So you see that there, and then we are weaving on that. I'm also a mural painter. When I say painter, in my studio, but also I bring murals out to the street. So it's a great way of sort of bringing community in. I would always set up a loom outside. And so that was the year when Obama was being pulled in. And so we wove the American flag out of plastic bags. Again, creating studio with whomever for all, welcome vibes, belonging, purpose, meaning. You know, inviting kids to learn how to build a loom and warp it and, you know, weave with pipe cleaners. So just always searching for ways of bringing people together. Talking about different, every culture's got their own unique food and music and language, but textiles too. So, you know, painting murals that would represent that and sharing that. These are the fence weavings, where I just often find fences on abandoned lots in the city, and then tie knots and go early in the morning, get an egg cheese sandwich, hang out, meet people, make a shag on a fence, and then leave it for the community to have. These are all little tiny weavings that I stitched together. Lately, I've been sort of getting around. Well, I always get around by bus, pretty much. So I like to bring a little tiny loom, a frame loom, a dollar store picture loom, and I warp it and weave little tiny patches. So hundreds of patches I'll then stitch together, and make, you know, I'll compose something and stitch it together to make larger pieces. So just for my public service announcement, I hope everyone in the room here knows what Narcan is. It's it's what one is given for an overdose. And so I looked at that Narcan and I thought, gosh, that reminds me of like a Turkish prayer rug, the shape of it, right? Where the point is pointing towards Mecca, so to speak. So, you know, I did a whole series of Narcan prayer rugs. So this is at the Philadelphia airport if you get through there. And I'm just going to wrap up here with the last couple of slides I have of some of the paintings that I do, sort of expressing dignity and kindness, activism. You know, the weaving, I know I weave real shaggy these days. So it's quick and shaggy and less, I don't know if it's my attention span. I don't know if it's the despair I often see in community. I just want to like get going with stuff, you know. A lot of times in my studio, I'll do these like little paintings or marker drawings is what I call them. So again, it's like, you know, me at the loom or you know, being crazy with string. And I'm saying this phrase here, wind your bobbin, sharpen your pencils if you don't know yet what you want to do. And this is something that Jean-Pierre Nael always said to me, you know, in the studio that I take with me everywhere I go is, like, let's figure, if you don't know what you're going to do something towards it, you know, like sort of wind your bobbins, sharpen your pencils, take a walk, you know, and determine ways to be kind and build connections with others, you know. So you know, carry an extra bottle of water, a pair of socks, look in people's eyes, you know, say hello, you know, all things that we know that we want to continue with, you know, and be aware of class discrepancies among us, and that everyone's going through something, you know, and that's what I just want to leave you with is just thank you so much, you know.